such beauty, as always. The camera lens does not capture the intensity of the moment. There are cliff dwellings all over. Try to zoom in on some right here. Different than other dwellings that we visited. There's many, many more scattered all throughout the cliffs. Some easier to see than others. Some are hidden. Let's go in and take a closer look.
That's okay.
Over metal islands and reefs, stream erosion and flooding scoured softer layers of sedimentary rock. Below the rim, shelves overhanging rocks were ready-made roofs and back walls. But there were other advantages for cliff dwellers.
Walnut Canyon is very unique as far as vegetation goes, and at the time, the people that were living there.
Long ago, an ancient meander of Walnut Creek dug deep into the heart of the plateau's limestone and other sedimentary rocks. In the midst of a broad oxbow bend, the stream left standing a towering island of rock. For cliff dwellers, the island was the best of all worlds. On winter days, south-facing rooms were warmed by the sun. In summer, north-facing rooms stayed cool, even on the hottest days. Depending on sun exposure, a level, easy walk of just a few hundred feet could take a cliff dweller from the sun-baked cactus of a desert landscape into the moss-covered cool realm of a fir forest.
Plants there, such as juniper, which is a good medicinal plant, as well as pinyon pine, Douglas fir, were used for medicines about 800 or 900 years ago. And of course, there was Arizona black walnut trees that grew there, banana yucca, which is an edible plant, and yucca is something that they use for basket weaving. Cotton grew there as well, which they used for making their clothing. And there was plenty of hunting there when people used to live there, so there was enough to go around for people to survive there for many years.
The natural landscape lends itself to people being able to live and utilize those areas. So looking down in the canyon, you would have seen those alcoves and those openings and going, I might be in a good spot. And started scouting them out, realizing that, yeah, this was a great place. Not only perhaps could you collect some marine water, but it would also lead to some protection from those winds that go through there.
Homes were constructed with thick insulating walls to help fend off summer's heat. Once warmed by fire, walls absorbed and then re-radiated heat on cold winter nights. Doorways were small to preserve the heat balance no matter what the season, most likely draped with hides that served as doors in winter months. Smoke escaped through small vents. Even so, the rooms were often clouded with a smoky haze. Decades of fires left most living spaces with telltale coatings of black carbon. Rooms with no carbon stains were probably used as storage rooms.
The rooms in Walnut Canyon are extraordinarily large. One of the reasons why they may be so large is because people were putting food and water in storage. Because Walnut Canyon is a dry place. The canyon itself flowed with water prehistorically, probably a couple of times a year. There would have been standing pools of water seasonally in the bottom.
To the cliff dwellers, the canyon may have looked strikingly different. With no dams upstream, flash floods from violent summer storms periodically strip the canyon bottom of timber and springs new growth. As elsewhere in the Southwest, the problem was too little water, and at times, too much water.
If you look at the size of the pottery vessels and you look at the amount of floor space in the rooms, it makes sense that people were storing drinking water for long periods of time. And they would have had to. You can predictably count on any time from about the middle of March through the end of June to be a very dry period where it's not going to rain enough to produce enough water for drinking. There are no springs in the vicinity of Walnut Canyon. What would be your option? Would be to capture the water when it's available, put it in large pottery jars for storage, and use it when you needed it.
So as we look at Walnut Canyon, just imagine your family is down inside the canyon, in the pueblo, in the cliff dwellings. You're farming up on top. You're perhaps a little bit at the bottom, but most of the farming up on top, in field sites, most of your hunting, most of your gathering also is up on top. Field sites were fairly small, probably 3 or 4 meters square. Of course, they used many strategies to survive in addition to agriculture, and again, many of these field sites were around the top of the Walnut Canyon area.
Winter placed a separate set of demands on the people of Walnut Canyon. Hunting parties ranged far from the cliff dwellings. A steady stream of firewood was needed for cooking, and especially for heating. The demand for fuel and construction materials may have caused the canyon and rim to be far more open than today, picked clean of most wood resources.
It's just fascinating to think over the centuries, the people that lived there, the life that went on in Walnut Canyon, the kids that were playing. We often think about, well, it's difficult to get down. We have a couple hundred of steps to go down to the island trail today. 1,000 years ago, the trip down into the canyon is probably much easier than we would expect today.
The canyon meanders about 20 miles. People are able to walk up close to the dwellings. There are over 300 cliff dwellings throughout the canyon. People lived up on the top as well as on the bottom.
Cliff dwellings are found on both the north and south slopes of the canyon. But one of the densest groupings of cliff dwellings was at the island. Far above most of the other cliff dwellings, the isolation afforded by island-top structures may have been intentional, possibly for ceremonial uses. There is little evidence of warfare, but the island top could have served as a refuge. The cliff dwellings on the island trail are a tantalizing look into the past, but they are just a fragment of the story.
The island trail at Walnut Canyon and the rim trail up on top, this is really only a part of many, many sites inside Walnut Canyon. Probably it represents 20 or 30% of all the pueblos in the canyon. Several hundred at least lived down in Walnut Canyon.
We don't see the full picture, but luckily we were given imaginations to kind of ponder those things, and definitely they would have been plastered by women's hands, and that's just the knowledge been passed on for many generations, and putting that love and care into repairing a crack so your family wouldn't be cold in the winter months, or it wouldn't be leaking with water. And there's the love put into taking care of the home. I think of those really strong, steady hands that really worked the clay and knew how to do it, so it would last a long period of time. Perhaps they did do some paintings on the walls, but those were probably more used for ceremonial activities in certain rooms.
Sometime after 1200, an exodus from Walnut Canyon was underway as clan after clan moved away. Archaeologists found some evidence of people at Walnut Canyon until the 1260s, but afterwards, it appears the canyon winds no longer carried the sounds of the cliff dwellers. What happened? It may be the people left because after a century of hunting, farming, and woodcutting, they depleted the capacity of the land to support them. Their departure also coincides with a drought that devastated the area between 1215 and 1221. But the culture was much more than what is seen in the remains of stone walls. It is revealed in the artifacts they left behind. Pieces of the past are woven into the bold, expressive designs found in textiles and in the geometric patterns painted on pottery. Other types of pottery were imported across great distances and point to extensive trade with other cultures. Seashells were made into necklaces and came from the Pacific, Sea of Cortez, and the Gulf of Mexico. Copper bells originated in southern Mexico. The archaeological trail grows faint after the ancient builders left Walnut Canyon. Some relocated elsewhere in the Flagstaff area, but it appears that several clans migrated north to the Hopi Mesas. Unfortunately, we will never know the full story of Walnut Canyon because so much of it has been lost to looters.
Walnut Canyon was a place that attracted a lot of early interest from the early settlers to the Flagstaff and the northern Arizona area. So it became a magnet for looters early on. And it was severely and extensively looted in the early part of this century before it was declared a national monument. And you know, some of these national monuments were created in an effort to just sort of provide some level of protection and to slow down the looting.
In 1883, an expedition recorded the first scientific observation of Walnut Canyon.
Masonry compares favorably with any employed in the best construction of the villages in Canyon de Chelly. Many objects of interest were found in the debris around and in the houses. James Stevenson, Smithsonian Institution, 1883.
In the years that followed, cliff dwellings that endured for centuries became weekend destinations for curious tourists, parties, and artifact collectors. Beer bottles, trash, and broken glass lined the trails. Wayward cows toppled ancient walls. Even worse, professional looters used dynamite to blow apart rooms just to let light in to ease digging. Countless artifacts were taken, and along with the artifacts, a story that can never be reconstructed fully. In 1904, Civil War veteran William Pierce became the first ranger at Walnut Canyon, a part of the newly created San Francisco Mountain Forest Preserve. Still, without adequate staffing and enforcement, looting continued. Energized local citizens started a grassroots movement to protect the fabled but now endangered cliff dwellings. In 1915, President Woodrow Wilson signed a proclamation establishing Walnut Canyon National Monument. Though much has been lost, the cliff dwellings still represent an opportunity to connect to the past. For some, the connection is deeply personal. Walnut Canyon's story lives on with those who share in the oral histories that tell of ancestral ties to this area.
It's still a living culture, so people that used to live there have moved on, and that's one really important thing that I want people to go away with. The people that used to live at Walnut Canyon didn't just disappear.
Walnut Canyon National Monument preserves not only the cliff dwellings, but also the canyon environment. In this setting, the forces of nature continue to slowly shape the canyon.
Whether it's a natural landscape and it's a place of cultural significance, or it's a place where people have lived in the past, these are places deserving of respect and care when we interact with them.
I feel really privileged working as the park ranger in these sites so that I can also interpret my own culture. And that has a really, I have a really deep feeling about that. And so a lot of the information that I have, it's not anything that I read from the books. It's something that was taught to me by my grandparents and my parents as well.
These places are not just significant to our people, it's significant to history. And I think that if you look at it that way, then I think then everybody would be better off, because then you would consider that this is not just Native American history, it's part of your history.
Again, the lens does not capture the beauty of it all. All the various chambers / rooms. Hundreds of dwellings. Let's keep moving forward. The perfect shelter. Check it out. You can see where they would let the smoke go out through the ash, or I'm sorry, through the cracks. It's inside a room. I'm too tall for this room. Life on the shady side. As I always say, upwards and onwards. Look at that overhanging rock. This was used as shelter. From ocean to alcove. Such beauty. And the necklace ain't bad either. These massive overhanging rocks. The various room functions. Talk about a home with a view. A quest for water. An efficient design. This is a protected fragile area, so we're not going inside. This is one of the largest rooms I've seen. I could actually stand up in this one. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy this type of thing. Ancient cultures, civilizations. Just makes you think, one day will they be looking at our dwellings, at our cities, and say, man, how rudimentary. Here's another good sized room. These are some of the smaller chambers. And here we come across some of the bigger ones. Life on the sunny side. You see the other dwellings across the way there too? Just literally hundreds of dwellings everywhere. A community sharing the land. They're everywhere. This is the first site we've been to where there literally are hundreds of cliff dwellings. Everywhere you look, they really use this canyon. These were obviously dynamited or rummaged through by pitchlers. What happened here? Man, so-called civilized man, happened here. But how has our thinking has changed? These sites are part of a living cultures and deserve our respect. Today, removing or digging for relics is illegal. Sitting or leaning on walls can cause irreparable damage.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, 10.
More chambers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Every little shadow that you see across the way there, those are different sets of rooms and chambers used for living, for storage.
The big one.